But this is really an important. Back in 1979, when I was director of special projects at the CBS station in Denver, and there were headlines in the newspapers and on radio and TV about these bloodless, trackless animal mutilations. And the word that appeared in headlines was, again, the return of. And I had come from Boston, where I had done all the medical and science programming for the ABC affiliate, WCBB. And I was now in Denver, hired to be director of special projects. And my husband was working for Time Inc. And so we had these busy lives. And I had honestly never heard of animal mutilations before being hired to be director of special projects at the CBS station. And then having headlines in the Denver Post and the Rocky Mountain News, the return of bloodless, trackless animal mutilations. And I wanted to get to the bottom of it. What is this about? And that was in September of 1979. And 43 years later, I'm talking to you in 2022, October, and looking back at that moment as I'm reading those headlines and thinking about all that has happened. The reality check for me as a journalist, as an executive at a TV station, about the impact of animal mutilations and what they were about came to me at the Eureka Springs conference in Eureka Springs, Arkansas. Probably would have been around maybe the year A Strange Harvest broadcast on May 25th, 1980. I was then being asked to go to conferences, MUFON and all sorts of conferences. And this may have been around 1982 or 3, because it was in 1983 that that spring in March, I signed a contract with Home Box Office in New York City to do an hour special for HBO that we had the agreed upon, the title, UFOs, the ET Factor. That is extremely significant that HBO was willing to do that title within only 3 years, approximately, of my doing A Strange Harvest. And in those 3 years, there was a tremendous evolution that took place from when I started the investigations and was talking with ranchers and law enforcement. Law enforcement had this mantra, oh, it's predators, disease, or satanic cult. That's what you would hear. And I would ask deputy sheriffs and people, where is this coming from? Why are there so many people in law enforcement who say that, when I'm getting medical evidence and veterinarian evidence that's quite opposite? And nobody would stand up and say, well, it was distributed in a memo. It was, well, that's what we are told to say. And with that as background, jumping to the Eureka Springs Ozark Conference, let's say that it was somewhere around when I signed the contract for HBO, might have been the spring of 1983. I decided that I was going to do a test of public reaction to what I had literally hundreds of cases that I was getting from a variety of sheriffs. I was going beyond the state of Colorado. And so I put together a program to be presented in Eureka Springs at that Ozark conference, where I was showing to the Ozark audience that I had come to know in those 2 or 3 years, this is what they really are. Here's veterinarian pathology. And I went through a whole case after case after case after case. It was straightforward, strictly investigative presentation. Nothing having to do with entertainment, nothing having to do with TV. It was just straight, raw. Here is what I have to show you. And after I did that presentation, I had people walk up to me and said, we had no idea, but Linda, this is scary. And when I got that fresh reaction from Ozark, I was immune because by then I had already become convinced in those 3 years from talking with law enforcement and ranchers who were eyewitnesses to UFO craft in the skies, to beams coming out of craft, people who had actually seen an animal rising in a beam of light or lowered in a beam of light. Where is any human technology that could do that? So I had an immunity, and I had a desire to constantly get to the bottom of it, accepting by then that the perpetrators, as Sheriff Tex Graves had told me in the interview I did with him in Logan County, Linda, the perpetrators of these bloodless, trackless animal mutilations are creatures from outer space. And I heard that from many people who would never stand in front of my TV camera. So now what I'm painting is a picture in which I, as a manager in a TV station office, a longtime investigative reporter in medicine, science, and the environment, those were my fields. I did not feel repulsion. I felt, I want to find out why this is happening. And that what I presented at that conference was, here is the data. You're looking at chests in which a veterinarian opened up a chest and there was no heart. If you take a 1,700-pound cow, the diameter of that heart is going to be approximately 9 by 11 by 12. They're huge. That's a heart of a grown cow. And this happened where the veterinarians would be called out by sheriffs, and they would be asked often to do necropsies fresh in the field, so time would not be moved in getting used up by getting them into a place in a town. And I have been through an entire necropsy on an animal with a professional veterinarian. It took about 3.5, 4 hours to do. And when there were multiple reports, no surgery, no excision lines on the outside of the chest, the abdomen, or any part of the body except ear missing, eye missing, tongue missing, jaw flesh missing on the same side of the missing eye, ear, and tongue, genitals in probably 90% of the cases, male and female, removed in either an oval, a circle, or a square, cuts that were only hide deep, no blood, no fluid, probably 90% also rectums cored out, vaginal tissue cored out. And it's the same all over the United States, Canada, Mexico, Central America, South America, Australia, New Zealand, all over Europe. Can't get accurate records from China. India is the only nation on planet Earth that, in all that work that I was doing in the 80s, I did this as a specific inquiry. Had anybody reported any bloodless, trackless animal mutilations of bovine in the nation of India ever? Was there any, could anybody? I even asked people at conferences, could you see if you could find anything on mutilations in India? The answer to this day in October of 2022 is I don't have a single case. I never found anything about a mutilation of an animal in the nation of India. And why is that interesting? It is the only nation on planet Earth that has a certain reverence for the bovine. And the bovine are close. They live closely with their human populations. And if the perpetrators of global bloodless, trackless animal mutilations are extraterrestrial biological entities, then they might be making a distinction about one population of humans that have a completely different relationship with cattle than all the rest of the world.
What if there's an agreement going on though, Linda? what if we're not the only ones that have an agreement with ETs? Maybe the powers that be or that are in India made an agreement with the ETs, possibly.
It is an interesting question. And I humbly say I don't know enough. I have no definitive answer to that. But what intrigued me was, what if there was or were spiritual and sociological differences made by extraterrestrial intelligences about something like the nation of India having a very intimate kind of relationship with bovines, and they did not mutilate any animals there. Your suggestion, this suggestion might be part of the fabric. But jump to where things are today. I think often of that Eureka Springs conference because many people told me they were afraid. They were scared after I presented the hard evidence. We humans are a puzzle. We seem to prefer to live with fantasies, and that much of our political climate for centuries is designed to keep the everyman always away from any upsetting information. And then if you jump to 79 to 82 and 83, when I was really seriously getting into all kinds of serious investigations with professional medical and law enforcement, I never felt fear. I went out by myself collecting in the plastic containers that were going to go to a pathologist, all kinds of tissue, working by myself. I do admit that a couple of times as it was getting late in an afternoon and I was by myself in the middle of a pasture collecting excisions from an animal that included those which were the perpetrators, which then I remember once stopping suddenly and just staring at the excision, saying to myself, you actually could be cutting out the work of extraterrestrials on this animal. But I never felt fear. I have felt frustration that we are in the United States and beyond. We are in political and government systems that always opt for policies of lies and denial than to tell the public the truth about subjects that might be distasteful or unpleasant or unsettling. And I would like to turn now to you and ask you, from everything that you have investigated, and you're dealing with the forbidden. I was dealing with the forbidden, but I was doing it as a longtime professional journalist who went to Stanford University, got a master's degree in communications, worked in news, was put in head of different departments. And I took on animal mutilations as an environmental problem that then escalated through law enforcement to, Linda, we're not alone in this universe. The perpetrators of animal mutilations are extraterrestrial biological entities, and we would like to know why. So I, as a journalist, pick up that baton and I want to understand why. Today in 2022, I can say, I think with confidence, but I can't prove it in a court of law, but I can say with confidence, animal mutilations take place every single year somewhere around planet Earth, sometimes multiple nations. There seem to be seasons of acceleration and increase in harvest and then reduction. But I think it falls into two categories. Sustenance for some, which is a nice word for food, and genetic harvest. And that the genetic harvest is truly applied to the creation of body containers that the non-humans can use for reasons that might range from camouflage to interact on this planet without humans knowing, all the way to deliberate genetic manipulation in experimentation that I think is ongoing on Earth. I have had people who have worked for the CIA, NSA, DIA say to me, we can't argue with the work that you've done. We cannot argue with the documentary you've done. We can't argue with the books that you have done. But what we can argue is animal mutilations, human abductions, two sides of the same coin, interaction by extraterrestrials in which humans are largely taken and not killed, and often, for the most part, returned. But it's the animals that then are put in this other category for a safe interface with the media, predators, disease, and satanic cults. And it bothers me in 2022 when we're on a planet and in a nation in which there is so much agitation in the United States and other countries that fall around the question, who is in control of any given nation today? And those that are in disagreement with who is in control are raising issues of civil war, using tactical nukes. I personally think this is the single most dangerous time that we have been in since World War II. With many resonances and echoes of the same issues and the idea of Nazism and what Putin and all of them are pushing. Okay, what if a man who worked for the Defense Intelligence Agency, who wanted to meet me, worked through a man who worked in the World Bank in December of 1999, all three of us had to travel because the person working in the DIA as an analyst had been there for 23 years. And he said that he could not meet anywhere near where he had worked or where he lived. And I decided I was willing to travel and see. And his opening comments were, Linda, I've spent the last 23 years analyzing the conflict on this planet Earth of three different extraterrestrial biological civilizations that have been in competition with each other over this planet Earth for at least 270 million years. Our government has proof. And when I said, what is the proof? He said, if I told you, it would be too dangerous, not only for me, but for you. Now, I have a flypaper memory for things that really stick. I've always had that gift. I've just told you real words from a real Defense Intelligence Agency analyst who retired in December of 1999 after 23 years of working as an analyst on the conflict of three extraterrestrial civilizations on this planet and how that affected the evolution of humanoids, which includes Homo sapiens sapien. We're the latest model. And he said, I have heard you in television interviews, and he had read my book, An Alien Harvest, in which I described that in the year 1983, that Home Box Office did a contract with me to do an hour for them, for HBO, that would be called UFOs, the ET factor. And in that work, in the TV interviews, everything that I was doing in and around trying to do that project, I reported that the first place that I went as a location as part of my HBO effort was Kirtland Air Force Base out here in Kirtland Air Force Base is in Albuquerque, New Mexico. And it was a meeting with an AFOSI agent named Richard Doty, and it was set up for me entirely by attorney Peter Gersten. And Peter Gersten is the one who took the whole FOIA when it was first. We didn't have FOIA until the end of the 70s. And Peter Gersten acted quickly and applied Freedom of Information Act requests to every intel agency that he knew about, military agencies, all kinds of agencies. And that was the case that went to the Supreme Court in January of 1980. And that was where they had an in-camera session, because all of the intel agencies said that the material that Peter Gersten was asking for under Freedom of Information Act was a threat to national security. And that is where, when you would see dear Stanton Friedman, my dear friend and colleague, a physicist who had studied nuclear physics, and when he would go to conferences and open up those pages with all the black, everything blacked out, and sometimes there were versions later in the years when they would white out, as if whiting out would make it look less sinister than blacking out.
It looks less nefarious.
Yeah, our government at work. And
hold on, Linda. I don't mean to interrupt you. And please do not lose your frame of thought with that.
Okay.
To everybody listening, one thing I have learned with Linda Moulton Howe, and I interviewed her 2018 Ozark UFO conference. And one thing I have learned over the years of watching her, she gets on a roll if she doesn't get interrupted nonstop. So if y'all are wondering why I'm not interrupting a whole lot, it's because she gets on a roll. I don't know why other talk show hosts and people just don't understand. Let her talk, and then they can put in questions every now and then. But go ahead, Linda, go ahead.
Bless your heart. Because, and I'll tell you, and to everybody listening, I have a mind that always goes, I go from seeing you and the screen and that I'm in my office. I've always been like this. I go into a place in my mind that is like, it's like I'm seeing everything that I lived, heard, saw. And it's like this movie is running inside of my head. And once I'm in there, to me, that is the richest part that I can contribute. And that if I'm allowed to just keep going, even though that breaks the rules of normal media, talk for a minute and get a question.
Not here.
I know that inside of me is a lot of stuff.
And a lot of people aren't like you, though, Linda. A lot of people aren't like you. And I have usually I will ask a lot of questions while I guess. But I've learned even before with that interview, I want you to continue here in just a second. But with that interview that we did, Ozark UFO Conference 2018, I got a lot of compliments. Thank you for not interrupting Miss Linda Moulton Howe. And I said, I've learned something a long time ago just watching you. Just whenever you get rolling, let that gold flow. You know what I mean? Let it flow. Let all that information flow and knowledge flow at all these years. But please go ahead, Linda.
I love you for that. We all should try to understand each other and understand that some people are better this way or that way. And so thank you for that. And my mind has held where I wanted to move that next statement, because this became kind of an important part of what was happening. It was around Christmas, and I remember it was a Christmas card that I was holding, and I believe that it was the Christmas right after I had signed, well, not right after, but the Christmas of the year that I had signed the home box office contract and was trying to move that documentary forward. And I was being blocked all over the place by the government. And it was a Christmas card. Looked like a Christmas card, opened it up, a Christmas card, but in the top edge, our government does work with the Greys, comma, but they lie, period.
The Greys.
Yeah, that's the, I gave you the whole sentence in a Christmas card. And I have learned that a lot of intel people they use Christmas and the exchange of Christmas cards to get things because of the overwhelming idea that you can't screen everything that's going in Christmas. And so Christmas is a good time to get information to, let's say, an investigative reporter. And that's how it was given. That one sentence in that one Christmas card that I think was December of 1983, it was like, I believe Sheriff Tex Graves when he said the perpetrators of bloodless, trackless animal mutilations are creatures from outer space. Later, I would believe that the DIA analyst who told me that he had for 23 years studied conflict between 3 competing extraterrestrial civilizations on our planet, that they are both true. And if you stand back from those 2 positions and you add that sentence in that 1983 Christmas card, the Greys, in all of the panoply from 2 feet, 3 feet, 4 feet, 5 feet, 6 feet, 7 feet, maybe one type maybe gets up to a little taller than 7 feet, but they're not the 8-foot tall whites, right? A whole bunch. And what are all of the small ones? Artificial intelligence. It's a given today. It wasn't a given in 83. The Greys, for whatever reasons, are the ones that were associated with the crash in Roswell, crashes in Aztec, retrievals, being up in Los Alamos, being recorded in movies, telepathically, people who were translating Greys. What happened in the probably mostly starting in the early 1980s, everywhere you would go to conferences and people would be wearing hats with Greys on them. There'd be Greys on t-shirts. There'd be Greys and all of these advertising. And I thought, who is behind this? What in the world has placed in children's hands, in clothes, all of this stuff about the Greys in the 80s? And I'm looking through the lens of that Christmas card. The Christmas card made me look through that lens. Why would the whole planet be introduced to a particular type that would take off like wildfire in a kind of social kidding way if they lie? And that question and that contradiction has haunted me to this day. So what are the types interacting? What are the real motives? Are there friendlies? Are there neutrals? Are there real hostiles? I think the answer to all 3 is yes.
Wow. The only thing I can think is, Linda, maybe with that emergence of the Greys from the 80s, and I would even say before that, up into modern day. But what I think with that emergence is maybe there's some type of, and Jim Mars, this little alien guy, this little alien guy is named Jim after Jim Mars, but
We all love Jim so much. Oh, Jim, wherever you are.
But I have a book, his book, Sci Wars, somewhere,
Spy Spies.
Sci Spies. But maybe there was a psychological war, Linda, with, I guess, the government or the rogue factions within the government and the population. Maybe maybe those rogue factions, the deep state, whatever you want to call them, maybe they know the true purpose and the true agendas behind these grays. Just like you said, your government insider stated that they've been here for billions of years.
270 million.
170 million, I'm sorry. That they know the true agenda, true purpose. They know everything. And for them to keep the narrative in their favor, they put this Disneyland Hollywood spin to deceive us so that they control the real narrative behind the scenes. And that gives them more power.
I think that it is very close to exactly what you have just said. And that right now, there's internecine warfare in the Pentagon over this effort to open up unidentified aerial phenomena, UAPs, which are the historic UFOs. And I have a certain sympathy, I truly do, for Luis Elizondo. I think he has been exposed to real truths. He worked for Defense Intelligence Agency. They have been one of the critical agencies interacting between the Department of Defense and UFOs and ETs. I think that what Lou did by trying to bring out first those 6 or 7 observables, why this can't be human made, because it can go at 12,000 miles an hour and stop on a dime, absolutely no inertial movement forward. It's impossible. Humans could not withstand that, and we don't make anything that would do that. So Lou began contributing through what I thought was a very intelligent angle. What are the observables of the UFO UAPs that don't fall into any category of human-made, human-known physics? Let's look at what these things do that we cannot do. And then they have added in the last 5 or 6 months, you've seen headlines. Humans have suffered physical damage in the presence of UFO UAPs. That's the John Burroughs case in England. I worked with John for years. I know that case better than probably any other military case I've ever worked on. And John Burroughs ends up finding that our government had files on him that are still, they're completely not given out to the public or to John, but that he has been told that he was studied, or they put him in the category of what they had learned in the 80s, that UFOs emit terahertz frequencies. And terahertz frequencies, depending upon what the frequency is, can interact with anything that is chambered. The heart in a human is the most chambered, but anything that has spaces in it, that's where the terahertz can cause high frequency vibrations, cause heart damage, cause brain damage, cause other damages. So now we're at a point in 2022 where I would say for the first time in the last year, that there have actually been admissions that there is a physical danger of humans, military or otherwise, in close proximity to quote unquote UFO UAPs. So now the landscape is being forced open by people who actually do have real knowledge, but they're doing it step by step and doing it carefully. And that's why the question, who is friendly, who is neutral, and who is outright hostile, is to me the most important question. I understand from people with a military background, they say you can't tell the public anything like that, Linda, people will panic. I have been doing a conference presentation. I think I started, the first version was in 2017, and I have done several. I'm always evolving. It's not the same, but the title is the same, having to do with non-humans, friendly, neutral, hostile. The person who brought all that to my attention was Jim Mars when he did Sci Spies. And I'm reading, and he and I were talking about what have the remote viewers seen? And that's what he was focused on in Sci Spies. And what you begin to realize is that there were remote viewers, and they were remote viewing all three. So Project Stargate, Lynn Buchanan, he was part of Stargate, a great remote. He said all of them, because they don't talk about what they're doing, and they don't even know what their task until much later. But when they would find out and finally talk with each other about things that they had done before, they find that all of them had a task. Is there other life in this universe? And every one of them got the universe is teeming with consciousness and life. What about, are they friendly? Are they neutral? Are they hostile? They all got, there are friendlies, there are neutrals, and there are real hostiles.
Just like our government, Linda, because I believe that we have friendlies and we have hostiles. We have these couple factions within our government that are, there's a secret hush hush war going on behind the scenes with this information, UAPs or UFOs and extraterrestrial life.
And I was just going to ask you, do you think that the United States of America, a government of, by, and for the people in its original birth, should have policies of denial about extraterrestrial biological civilizations in the Milky Way galaxy and beyond, because they don't think people can handle the truth? And what happens?
You got to take the training wheels off eventually.
And just throwing the ball back to where you were. If we have a government that for 80 some years since World War II has had nothing but policies of denial and lies about extraterrestrials that we have worked with, that are underground, that we know that they have bases in Ganymede and beyond, then what did we do? Maybe without intent in the beginning, but certainly here is the cause and effect. We now have a government that is run by unknowns, in the secret, in the shadows, in the underground labs. And what is their biggest treasure? It is their power over everything.
Information.
Policies of denial and lies about something as significant as, no, we are not alone in this universe. Yes, there are extraterrestrial biological entities. Are we working with some? Absolutely. Why can't we have that dialogue?
And Linda, I actually did, which just like I stated a while ago, and I knew not to interrupt you because you get on a flow, but I did write a few questions down, and I'm glad you brought that up because it goes to say, how do we know who to trust, Linda?
Right.
So check this out, Linda. To play devil's advocate, maybe not to you, but to others out there. And I'm an open book, just so everybody knows. With all these big dogs in the political arena coming forward since 2017, is it possible that we are dealing with two factions, like I stated a while ago, like in the X-Files, with the cigarette smoking man and the deep throat characters? And I also feel like there is a silent war going on behind the scenes with these dualistic factions. Is it possible that we are being used like Fox Mulder was being used? Yes, he was given breadcrumbs of truth from these characters, but most of the time he was given breadcrumbs of truth that steered him in the wrong direction, while those in the shadows were keeping the entire truth and narrative to themselves for their own political gain. Is it possible that we, as the UFO community, are given only tidbits of truth by these political figureheads while they misdirect the real truth so they can keep the narrative to their favor?
Can't you hear Jim Mars? in his low laugh. Well, what do you think? Jim would say,
So,
absolutely.
so how do we move forward though, Linda? How do we move forward? Because you don't know who to trust, because there's a silent war.
Trust me. I have truly tried.
Other than you, I was talking about like the political arena.
Yeah, no,
But
you're right. A really good question of trust in a lot of different directions. But there are a few of us who really, really have tried really hard, myself included, to at least try to get insights, whether they are documents, whether it is talking with people that I can never put on camera, and using a kind of journalistic instinct that you then do deeper dives. And my approach, just to throw the ping pong ball back to you, it has always been, if I have information that seems startling, how many other people, without them knowing anything about my source or the content, how many other people, if I ask a question related, will have more information? And I would say that has been one of my main approaches, is test material on a variety of people. And when you get several returns, you know that becomes a bigger, and that's how several pieces in my work, they keep rolling forward. I am convinced that we have starships, and we have been working with tall whites and Nordics. I think this is absolutely true. And that there is the USS Curtis LeMay and a couple of others, and they have been out to other solar systems in this little arm of the galaxy. And when I have reported it and done it on my Earth Files YouTube channel and at Earth Files, I will get almost every single time, maybe within a week or two, it will come either through a proton mail, or what I have found that a lot of people are using today is nothing to do with computers. I get amazing material through the US mail. So people are going backwards out of digital, that is possibly dangerous, good mail. And it is almost like a litmus test. If I can raise a subject with some facets, I can't prove, but I can raise, let's say, about that we have starships, that we have been able to evolve with the tall whites and the Nordics that are trying reasons that are not clear, and raise another question: why would extraterrestrials have a vested interest in 21st century humans? That is a very strange question. But assuming that they do, assuming that they actually are trying to help us, that they see that we have been abused, that we are a species of genetic manipulation. The document that I was shown at Kirtland 1983 is as germane today as it was astounding to me to read on April 9th, 1983. These extraterrestrial biological entities manipulated DNA in already evolving primates to create Homo sapien. That is an exact sentence out of that document that I was shown. And then toward the end, Project Garnet, and it said, all questions and mysteries about the evolution of Homo sapien on this planet have been answered, and this project is closed. Svante Pabo just got a Nobel Prize for the scientist who was able to put the Neanderthal genome in one piece and compare it to Cro-Magnon Homo sapiens sapien. Another genetic story that came out in the beginning of October was, if you have blue eyes on planet Earth, you are a generation from one human being genetic manipulation 9 to 12,000 years ago. That fits exactly into information that I have received going all the way back to working on A Strange Harvest, that extraterrestrial civilizations have used planet Earth as a laboratory, that they have done untold genetic manipulations of all kinds of things here, not just primate humans. And then one gene, and Pablo even named that gene as part of his Nobel Prize. This one gene it's the only thing that makes blue eyes over the next 9 to 12,000 years. Well, doesn't that fit neatly into extraterrestrial biological entities have manipulated DNA in already evolving primates over the last 45,000, over the last 100 million? Therefore, now we're at the big box. It's where I guess most of my thoughts and reading this day are about. The big box is Earth is an extraordinary planet. It may have an almost unique balance between land and water. And that when that Defense Intelligence Agency analyst said, our government has proved that 3 extraterrestrial biological civilizations have been in conflict over this planet because of the laboratory experiments that they each want to do, and they're in conflict over. Take that lens to today. How preposterous that we are still, by October 6th, 5th, 6th, October 6th, 2022, how preposterous that we still are on a planet that pretends, thinks, is told we are the only organic biological life form in this entire universe, that the Webb telescope photos, they've estimated there might be 3 trillion galaxies implied in one of those photos. Doesn't that right there, just those sentences, take all of the last 80 years, all of the centuries, and boil it down to why? Why wouldn't Homo sapiens sapien have been told the truth long, long ago? Who is gaining by keeping this strange box around planet Earth? You are the only life in the universe. Who gains from that and why? And that's why I'm just cheering that they will use the James Webb telescope this coming spring. I've been told April might be a month, depending upon geopolitical consequences of things going on. But if they would use the James Webb to just do one thing, show that it looks like this when they go into chemistry and they're showing chemistry in an exoplanet. And all they need to do, because they've been showing it a lot and everybody's getting used to, the James Webb can aim at planets, exoplanets, and come back with this is how much hydrogen, oxygen, and so forth. And have the worldwide, all at the same time, night, day, the headline. We finally have proof we're not alone in the universe. The chemistry on planet 4 of the TRAPPIST-1 solar system, the chemistry can only have been produced by biological life. That makes the discovery out there, safe distance. People can look at chemistry. It isn't a gray or a white or a blue or whatever standing in front of us. And now we will start unfolding the existence of other life in the universe safely through the Webb telescope. And then eventually it has to happen. The tall whites, the Nordics, the grays, the blues, the praying mantises, all of them, they have to somehow be introduced because they exist. It's real. Okay,
Linda, time's running out for this time. So how do you see this UFO culture, is what I like to call it, and disclosure down the road? Are things hopeful for this community and for humanity?
Every Wednesday night, I come together on my Earth Files YouTube channel live. We have an audience now that's about 220,000, and it keeps growing. And I think about all of these people that are tuning in for an hour on a Wednesday night to talk from my point of view about as many things as I can share that have to do with journalism, fact, science, as it relates to this whole huge issue, are we alone in the universe? And that there are all of these people in all of these countries that come every week, and they then send me their stories. I get at least 100 handwritten or typed letters every week. And then there are hundreds of emails. And what is unfolding in front of me as I'm trying, as a longtime investigative journalist that I've always been, and a documentary filmmaker, my whole goal is, what facts, what firsthand testimonies, even if they have to be confidential, can you bring every week to keep expanding the reality that not only are we not alone in the universe, but that our government of the United States has known since World War II, and that we have an entire other nation, in a sense, that parallels the one we think of as our government, that is dealing with advanced technologies in our galaxy that we know about extraterrestrial intelligences. That's not a culture. That's not a movement. This is a reality of a revolutionary change as big as anything that has ever happened in the history of human civilization. We are approaching, finally, we're not alone in this universe. And in all of the letters and in all of the emails, by the end of each year, I mean, we're talking over 1,000, are people who have reached out to tell me about a being in their room, in a car, in a farm, a mutilation, an abduction, that the abductions themselves are like a bell-shaped curve of anything and everything you could ever imagine. But instead of people writing an email or hard letters with drawings, sometimes with photos, they aren't saying, I'm petrified. They're not saying, I'm terrified. They are often saying, these beings showed me this, taught me this. I have had dreams about this that help protect me. As if in some of the cases of what has already started happening is some kind of a dialogue in dreams, in telepathy. It's been going on for a long time. The Betty and Barney Hill case, 1961, probably the first well-known abduction. But what I'm trying to say is, in parallel, we are moving toward that hopefully James Webb announcement, and we will finally crack this huge lie. We're not alone. Meanwhile, all of these people around the planet are fellow human beings. They're not running scared. They want the truth to be the world's truth. That's what I get from people. It's what I want, because if we continue to live on a planet with 8 billion other humans, that every policy having to do with government and military priorities is to keep the entire planet from knowing we're not alone in the universe, and that our own government is working with extraterrestrials. To me, the end of that kind of policy would be perverse. We have to get humans on planet Earth, whether they are the head of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, or they run a restaurant in New York, whatever it is, we need to get humans back in some kind of a collaboration with each other that is not mistrust. I hate you because of your skin. All of that. Maybe if we finally were told the whole truth, that we are a genetic experiment from 3 competing extraterrestrial civilizations, and that maybe 2 of them actually care enough to see us evolve, that maybe they are the ones who have kept us free from annihilation by hostiles. I would be cheering if we were given that announcement. I would not be running to the exit afraid. That's where I think if humans knew the truth, the whole truth, and that we might be something extraordinary to some extraterrestrials who eventually we might be able to truly publicly collaborate with, that would help us survive what right now Earth looks like it's going to be a bucking horse for the rest of this century in climate. Elon Musk says he's going to put 1 million people on Mars by 2050. So we're already beginning to move out what could be the more perfect time for all of the leaders, all of the governments to stand up and finally tell the truth. It might calm some of the political agitation that seems to me to be taking hold of the whole planet in a very negative way.
Very well said, Linda. The beautiful Linda Moulton Howe. I love you so much. I mean it. You have been a big inspiration. Hug, internet hug.
Yes,
But
yes,
you have been an inspiration to me, thousands, probably millions out there. But this was definitely a treat, an honor, a privilege, and I would like to try to get you down the road. I know you're busy, sometimes in 2023, and man, I don't even know what to say.
If we get this headline, whenever we get this headline, if it's going to come in the spring or when, call me. Honestly,
I will.
Let's do an interview within 24 or 36 hours of our finally getting the headline. We're not alone in this universe. There is other biological life form. We'll do an interview.
Well, Linda,
I promise.
Awesome. Hopefully it happens.
Yes.
But Linda, I want you to stay right there. But everybody that's listening, just drop them comments below, like, share, subscribe. I'm also going to put this on Facebook also, and I will be giving this to Linda, and she can put it, do whatever she wants to with it, upload it to her YouTube channel. We can put it up in her files. Yeah. Awesome. But Linda, you have a good evening, and we will definitely keep in touch.
And I love you, fellow Homo sapiens sapien on a planet that needs the truth. God bless you.